Hello, and welcome to the BNEWS Election Center. Tonight we have a special conversation with school committee candidate Martha Simon, who is running for re-election. She's actually running unopposed, but because there's so much important things going on all the time with the schools, but especially this year, we thought we'd have her on to talk about why she wanted to run again. So Martha, thanks for joining me.
I'm
Uh,
glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start off with just, it has been a crazy year. There's a lot of work to be done on the school committee. What makes you want to run for another 3 years?
Well, there is a lot of work on the school committee, and this has been a very difficult year, but not for me in the sense, in comparison to how difficult the year has been for the students, for the teachers, for the families. It's been a very difficult year. But I do want to continue on the school committee, and I hope that will happen on election day. Um, because I feel like I've been able to bring my experience as a teacher over the years, my experience as a parent over the years, and my knowledge of the community to to the school committee. My values are important values that this town and this community want. So I feel good about the things I've brought to the committee and to the school district. So I have more to say, but go ahead and ask me another one.
um, so obviously this has been an interesting year for education with, the kids being first, working fully remotely all of a sudden, and then, with the different hybrid and full remote and kids in here, just, the different models that they have. What are some of the big lessons you think, the school committee, the school administration, and teachers have taken away from, a year of teaching during COVID?
Yeah. I think probably the biggest lesson is the relationships that students and teachers have. The most success that we have in our school, whether it was last spring or this year when things have been really difficult, is those relationships with the teachers and between the teachers and the students. I think that, and last spring was, there was nothing good we could say about it, although there are some good situations that happened um, due to the hard work of our teachers and the commitment of our families. Um, but the primary concern was to make sure everyone was safe and healthy and alive. Then this fall, when we were asked to return as much as we could, I'm pleased that the Burlington schools have been open every week since September 10th, except for the 1 week after Thanksgiving. We are going to go back to the full in person for families that did not choose to stay fully remote. I feel good that we were able to give families that choice during the year, the hybrid or the remote. But it was very disruptive for most families. It was difficult to meet the needs of all the different stakeholders, whether they were teachers or families, and different families had different needs, and whether it was a medical need or an emotional need. Um, Often the needs of our families and our staff, were contradictory to even from one family to another. Um, it was a difficult year, and now we are going to be going back to full in person, which is again going to be a disruption. It will be a benefit for many of our students. It may not be for some of our students, but we're being required to do that. And we're going to do the best we can. And I really do have faith in our teachers that they will make it work as best they can. I can't appreciate the staff, the teachers, the administrators, everyone for what they've done this year. And I I do hope that going into next year that we take lessons from this year, that we don't just, oh, okay, now we can go back to doing everything the way we always did. I mean, there's lots of things that we want to go back to doing just the way we always did it.
True.
But there are things that I think we've learned this year. There are some students who have thrived with the remote learning. There are teachers who've learned all kinds of new tools to use that they may be able to use in the classroom. Um, I think that it's important for us to not to take what we have learned as an opportunity to rethink things that we might have always just taken for granted. And I hope that we'll be able to do that.
And during all of this, what have been some of the main concerns that you've heard from, students or the parents? What has been communicated most to you throughout this situation?
Well, I think that each individual family has been a different situation. Um, and it's hard, and each individual student, we might have a family where one student was thriving in one environment and another student in another. Um, so I don't know that I can even answer that,
Hmm.
um, but I think that it helped, that again is a lesson for us to remember. We're a public school system, and we do need to meet the needs of all of our students, but we also have programming and classrooms that are very difficult to meet the needs of every single student. So one of my goals as a school committee member is to keep pushing the district to make sure that we are providing the best we can for every student, whether they are on an IEP, whether they are in honors classes, whether they're a kid who's in mainstream classes, whether it's a kid who really loves science or music or art. I feel like as much as we can, we need to keep pushing. That if a student comes, from a family that's lived in Burlington for 3 generations, we want to make sure that this is a good environment. If it's a family that's moved here not so long ago, or whose heritage is from a different culture, we want to make sure that all those students feel they belong, do not feel like they're other. And I'll take this moment to say I am very excited because in the next week or two, we're going to hear who that Dr. Conte has chosen to hire as our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm very excited to be working with whoever the new person is. I have heard that our finalists were all really wonderful.
Hmm.
Um, and I also am excited that when this new person comes in, that they will see that we are a district that is working on these issues. We're not hiring someone to fix problems for us. We're hiring someone to come in and help lead us in the work we're doing. We have so many teachers and students and families that are trying to make sure that every child, regardless of their background, has an equitable situation in school for them. And I'm just very excited that we can continue to do this work. It's slow work, and sometimes it's painful because I know that there are situations that are painful for our students or our families. And the outside world comes in too. I try to focus on the schools, but I know that, that when George Floyd was murdered last spring, it affected all the families here in Burlington as well as across the nation. That when when there's been anti-Asian hate throughout the year, it's affected our families and our students. And I want to, hope that we can make the schools as responsive as possible and as welcoming and inclusive as possible for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you jumped ahead on me by going right to the new director position. Well, that's okay. So I know one of the things that is under current review is planning for the FY22 budget town meeting. What are some of the ways that you're going about approaching this potential sort of difficult financial year?
Well, I don't personally make all those decisions. I mean,
Right.
I have one of 5 votes on the school committee, and we do take our lead from Dr. Conti, who has a good handle on this. And our new business manager, well, she's not so new anymore, but our business manager, Nicole Kasha, has helped us get on track. We've had support from the town meeting to get our finances, transparent and clear, and that our budgets are being handled very well now. So and I want to thank town meeting also for our Director of Equity, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion position, because we're going to be able to start much sooner because they got this through in last September. So I forgot to thank them, but I don't forget it. But so our budget is, I mean, we're going to not be able to, we're not adding anybody new except for this. We're funding the rest of the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion position. But there are other needs in the district, and there is going to be additional federal funding. So we're looking at ways that we can use the COVID funding to support some of our programming and use those funds to make to help go forward with our schools. One big example, which I didn't specify earlier, is social emotional learning and social emotional needs of our students was a big issue before COVID pandemic. And now we have additional trauma. The numbers I hear about are that we have more students who are hospitalized for psychiatric reasons. We have younger students being hospitalized, and not even just hospitalized, but kids who are traumatized by this year, families who are. We need to make sure that we have the resources. And so we're hoping maybe we can use some of those resources to provide supports. And then to go back to the other emotional issues, social emotional issues that were there before, the amount of stress in the schools. What are the ways that we can look at our educational system, the pace of the day, the kinds of homework that kids get? There are ways that hopefully we can continue to make our students' lives more productive and feel calmer and less anxious and stressed out. So that's an area I plan to to continue to advocate for going forward. That's an important piece for me.
And you may have just answered this question, but my final question was, what do you think should be the main priorities of the school committee and the district, in the year or two ahead?
Well, there's a few. I mean, we need to get back into a more, I don't know what the right word is, but a more academic focus in some ways, because we do need to have our kids learning. I'm not as worried as some people are about what they lost, because everybody was in the same boat. And if they're still alive, then we didn't lose the most important thing. But we do need to refocus on academics. I do think this year that we've continued to do that. And the evidence has come up in the ongoing assessments that we've done through the year that there has been growth in academics. But we also need to continue to work on our issues around equity. We need to continue there's some the social emotional learning. And we also have a couple of building projects that are just on the verge of happening. We're hoping to get some state funding for a new elementary project, which we haven't decided a final project, what it will be, but we've put in the proposal. And also where we were not able to get state money, I hope that the town will be supportive in us getting the renovations at Burlington High School that we need. And, before COVID, I had concerns about the air quality at Burlington High School in terms of the research shows that the healthiest buildings provide for more productivity and better cognitive performance for students and for teachers. So we need to do this work. We need to renovate the high school. We need to address the HVAC system, which if it came apart, we wouldn't have parts to fix it, because it still runs on a floppy disk, if anyone's old enough to remember what a floppy disk is, And we have science labs that are from 1971 at our high school. We need, without even enough outlets for the devices that the students are using. So that's another project that's a big thing coming up. And we need to look at how to use what we know now about the environment to make our buildings healthy and safe, and the best learning environment that we can, while the pandemic isn't going to be over. So we'll continue to need to be addressing the health and safety issues as well. So, I mean, school systems are addressing many areas, and we can't just pick one. I want to make sure we address all of them.
All right. Now, just to wrap up here, like I said at the top, you are running unopposed, but what is your elevator pitch to voters to get them to come out to the polls and show support for your candidacy?
Well, I do hope people will vote for me. I ask you respectfully for your vote, despite the fact that I don't have somebody opposing me. I do feel like I'm doing the best. I'm providing a lot for the town, for the students, and that I am also open to hearing from people. And if people feel that there's a concern, obviously you want to talk with the teacher or the principal, but if there are issues that you feel are ongoing that need to be pushed from the other direction, I want people to email me msimon@bpsk12.org, or you can call me. I'm in the phone book. So I do hope people know I want to hear. I want to hear your voice. I want to know what the concerns are.
All right. Well, very good. And just a reminder to everybody that early voting starts on April 5th at Grandview Farm. The actual town election is Saturday, April 10th. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. In the high school gymnasiums. We are being asked to wear a mask and try to socially distance, all the regular safety precautions that we've gotten used to over the past year. Well, Martha Simon, candidate for school committee, I appreciate you taking some time and joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.